I'd first like to thank the American Legion Hall and Glenn Fan for providing us. Thank you. Thank you for the candidates who were able to make it. We have 7 of the 8 looks like here tonight. We'll start with the rules for tonight. Each candidate will be given 15 minutes to speak. We will go. We'll do time through the Toastmasters International. Charm in the back there. We'll have our flags. You will get a 2-minute warning, which is a green flag, a 1-minute warning, yellow flag, and a red 30-second flag. No, that's a 0 times up flag. We have 30 seconds to wrap it up. Okay. We will go by random order. Let's see if we can get someone to draw a name for us. Starting out tonight with Trenton Motley. Yep. Get it over with, right? Followed by Peggy Levitt. Warren. Sure. Warren wants everyone to go up at once. Followed by Claudia Bridges, 3rd. Next will be James Howard Adams. Next will be Tom Tyler. Followed by Judy DeShane. And that means Rich, you're following up the tail. Okay? Close the show. Okay. So if you didn't get copies of the questions that we asked them to answer tonight, there's some flyers in the back table. There's a longer sheet which gives you room to take notes, or if you just want the Reader's Digest version of the same, papers are just shorter pieces. So with that, we'll turn the time over to Trenton.
One thing about going first is I just texted my girlfriend that my worst fear tonight would be going first. Jinxed myself. First question is, do you think our historic downtown area is healthy and successful? If not, what would you do to change that? Partially, yes. Obviously, we have some boarded up buildings that need attending to. Besides those few, I would say the downtown area is doing well, especially with the opening of the Two Wheels business, which I don't know if anyone drove by that this weekend. It was pretty popping all weekend long. The partially no side of me thinks is like a few shops on Wyoming that can never seem to keep a business going, and then I believe with some new ideas to get more people into town, the right businesses, and some better parking, not just on that side, but other parts of town as well, we can get our downtown area thriving even more than it is now. Second question, how would you strengthen the city's historic preservation program to ensure continued protection of city landmarks, historic sites, and historic district? First step, I think, was to get rolling with the Promote Historic Preservation steps in the new action plan. Only one of the strategies has a start before July 1st of this year, and that is adding new preservation districts like the old airport. The action plan seems like good first steps, and I really like the incorporation of the Historic Preservation Committee in most of these steps. Preserving our history to me is huge, because without it, what is Boulder City? Another town outside of Las Vegas, and no offense, but I can't think of people remembering anything exciting in Henderson besides the Pepcon explosion. What's more important for our city right now? Building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing, expanding, or better utilizing our existing homes and storefronts? Overall, I believe it is more important to rehab and better utilize our existing spaces. What we have now should be perfect before we start building new. If we go further and further out from our historic district, traffic will end up being routed away from it, and then it will never be seen. The homes are a different story. I do not think while we need to rehab some of our homes, it is just not in some of the owners and even potential buyers' budget to be rehabbing this stuff on their own. We're not just talking about carpet and drywall and stuff like that. I can do that stuff. But some of the houses, I'm sure, have foundation problems, deep plumbing problems, and things of that nature, which is why we are going to be wanting people to rehab these, which is why, if we are wanting people to rehab these homes, we should find grants to help offset the costs, while also building a set or two of smaller, less expensive starter townhouses for younger people like me with our low school enrollment numbers. Do you support our current growth ordinance? If not, what would you do to change it? Considering our allotted 120 homes and 35 hotel rooms and 60 units for a developer in 2 years hasn't been reached since the 1990s, I don't see a reason to really disagree with it. I do like the controlled growth, but I think there are some things in it that could be tweaked in order for our town to be favored for new families and young adults. Like I said, our school enrollment numbers are pretty low, and it wouldn't be a bad idea to up some developers' lots only on strong circumstances in order to keep the prices down to be appealing for the starter people. Fifth question. I should go through this really fast. The Boulder Dam Gateway project has only been tabled. Do you agree with the current proposal as it stands? Why or why not? What do you think will be the future impact on our community should it go through? In short, not only no, and excuse my language if you have any kids in the room, cover their ears, but hell no. Why would I be in favor of putting the amenities of an entire city right outside our city so we can become another Radiator Springs? I'm not sure about most of you, but I can honestly say I can't drive like Lightning McQueen and bring that much attention to our city on my own. I understand that it would bring the town tax revenue, but the only other thing it would do is give people an entire other reason to not even have the chance to stop in our wonderful town. The future of Boulder City with a project like that is gloomy, and I, as well as many others, I'm sure, are not in favor of seeing that happen. 6, how do you feel the current city's financial status is? How would you plan to improve it? What options are there for increasing revenue streams for our financial success? Well, we must be doing good, right? Being able to think about a $40 million loan for the pool, all these extra utility fees, 15 new positions at City Hall, and even paying a private company to set up and operate a metal detector for city council meetings at City Hall. With that being said, I don't necessarily think our financial status is bad, but it could be better. The new city action plan has a couple great steps that I would like to get behind, such as keeping a yearly updated financial plan and hiring an unbiased and unaffiliated purchasing manager. As far as revenue streams, solar is pretty big, and with California trying to go completely renewable energy, I can't see us really losing those solar leases. I do want to take some of the financial responsibility off those leases, and maybe we can even have some more negotiating power with those companies by bringing in more events into town. We have a big enough desert south of town, and we already have a completely built motocross town out in the El Dorado Valley. We could hold our own races like Pioche does. And that is all I have. Thank you again, Laura and Tracy, for having us here tonight.
I hope you can hear me. I'd like to thank the Boulder City Community Alliance for hosting this event. I think it's very important for everyone to hear from the candidates, and I'm just honored to be here. So I'll just repeat the questions again. You may be sick of them by the end of the night. Number 1, do you think our historic downtown is healthy and successful? If not, what would you do to change it? I believe that by a wide margin, many aspects of our historic downtown are healthy and successful. Some examples are the Boulder Dam Hotel, Museum and Restaurant, Brew Pub, Coffee Cup, Milo's Two Wheels, which was just mentioned, Trent just mentioned was open, Evans, Dillinger, Tony's Pizza, Jack's Place, and many other businesses and antique stores. It is also important to point out the residential area around the historic downtown. Home values on Birch, Cherry, and Denver Streets have properties that consistently sell for the highest price per square foot in all of Boulder City. Obviously, there is value seen by homeowners in the historic downtown. The Damn Short Film Festival had the biggest turnout they have ever had in the historic Boulder Theater. This historic theater has been rehabbed and is one of the gems of our small community. The Arizona Street reconstruction project was just recently completed. The streets were repaved and the curbs, gutters, and sidewalks in many areas were replaced. This was being done while necessary utilities were being replaced or repaired. While this was a challenge for some businesses during the construction, the result has made a huge improvement in that area. That doesn't mean that we can't strive to do more. The obvious problem in the historic downtown is the boarded up scratch house and the Boulder building. There continue to be attempts by the city leaders and the Chamber of Commerce to have dialogue with the owner about options to rectify this situation. In the new 5-year strategic plan adopted by unanimous vote of the City Council, promoting historic preservation is one of our highest priorities. One of the strategies identifies financial incentives to promote historic preservation in this area by developing a new RDA grant that targets historically significant buildings in that district. I should add, with respect to this, that RDA funding was used at the Scratch House and the Boulder building. So I think the I think the historic downtown is a thriving, vibrant part of our community, and I think we can do even more to make it more attractive to draw locals and visitors to that area. Number 2, how would you strengthen the city's historic preservation program to ensure protection of city landmarks, historic sites, and the historic district? I think it is exciting to see so much energy and enthusiasm around historic preservation in Boulder City, and many of you in this room are part of that effort. I think it's also important to recognize some of the historic preservation efforts in recent history as well. The preservation and restoration of the Boulder Dam Hotel and Museum was a monumental effort by the community to save that building. And I wanted to tell you that when I was running my first campaign, that I was approached by a businessman down in the historic district who has a business down there, and he said, what you ought to do with that building, because it was struggling at that time, is just bulldoze it down and put in parking. So think what our downtown would be like if that had happened. Additionally, the Boulder Dam Museum has an outstanding educational outreach to our local students as well as students around the valley to educate them about our unique history and heritage related to the town that built Boulder Dam. I learned a lot from the Historic Preservation panel that the Historic Preservation Committee hosted almost a year ago. One of the most important things I learned is that even in the historic preservation community, there is debate about historic preservation and the best way or method to achieve it. Heidi Swank, who is an assemblywoman and the executive director of the Nevada Preservation Foundation, indicated in her remarks that day that there is a misunderstanding of what constitutes historic preservation. Assemblywoman Swank commented that historic preservation is a balance between change and maintaining historic integrity. People have asked if there is flexibility, then what is historic preservation? She mentioned a piece in Architectural Daily entitled, "Do architecture preservationists know what they are fighting for?" Quoting from this article, Ms. Swank stated, quote, "Whether a building is worthy to be saved does not depend on anybody's personal experiences of that building or whether it is liked. In fact, it doesn't even depend on whether a building is good." Another quote, "In the field of history, it is now generally accepted that understanding our past is key to making better decisions in the future, while other events, periods, and people might be best remembered through documents, images, and trinkets. The best record of an architectural period is unquestionably the buildings that represent it." So if architectural preservation is an act of recording history, what matters is not whether a given building is good, but whether it is important. Another panelist commented that Boulder City needs to decide what its narrative is and then select which buildings tell that narrative best and decide that those are the ones we are going to save. Dennis McBride, director of the Nevada State Museum and a former resident of Boulder City, I'm sure many of you know him, indicated that this is a really important point, but to keep in mind that the town may have more than one narrative, and the original narrative of Boulder City is the construction of Hoover Dam. Mark Hall Patton, who is the administrator of the Clark County Museum System, said, "You can't save everything. It has to make sense economically. They have to find good adaptive reuses to keep important buildings around. It is easy to get money to save a building," which I don't agree with. But he said, "It is easy to get money to save a building, but not to pay the electric bill. Nobody wants to donate money to pay for ongoing costs." This is just a sampling of a very interesting and informative discussion with very knowledgeable and distinguished scholars in the area of historic preservation. The city has just adopted a new 5-year strategic plan to promote historic preservation. This is the first time, to my knowledge, that the city has committed dedicated, knowledgeable staff and resources to promote historic preservation. I brought copies of this plan with me tonight if you'd like to pick one up after this forum, because I don't have time to discuss all the strategies in my 15 minutes. For your information, there are 8 strategies with subsets promoting historic preservation. Tomorrow night, the City Council will be considering approval of a proposed amendment to the Historic Resources zoning chapter, so the city can be eligible for the Certified Local Government Program. This is known as CLG. The CLG is a partnership between the National Park Service and the State Historic Preservation Office, commonly known as SHPO, and local governments and local historic preservation programs. This is a big step forward. CLG status will open up grant opportunities through SHPO for historic preservation activities, including updating the city's existing historic guidelines and an inventory of historic properties. An inventory is the most important step to document what we have and what should be saved. Another important step was that city leaders, Jill Lagan from the Chamber of Commerce and the mayor and myself, were in Carson City last week lobbying for $25 million of state funding for the expansion of the Nevada State Railroad Museum. This would be fantastic for our town. Not only would we be preserving a valuable piece of our history, it would be a showcase for Boulder City on the intersection of Boulder City Parkway and Highway 93, the gateway to the Lake Mead recreational area and Hoover Dam, thereby attracting thousands of visitors. I attended a meeting of the Boulder City History and Arts Foundation on Saturday. There was a great discussion on possible uses for the historic water filtration building. I think this is a perfect example of what needs to be done with historic preservation. Community outreach and citizen input has to be part of this movement, and it is incorporated into our historic preservation plan so that we can collaborate on how we move forward as a community to preserve our unique and precious heritage. Can I get a drink without it costing any time? Never gets good. Number 3, what's more important for our city right now, building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing, expanding, or better utilizing our existing home and storefronts? To me, this is not an either-or question. I think both are important in our town. It is important to understand that the city has limited control over private property owners. As you know, we have a project underway right now, Storybook Homes, which will add 127 homes over the next 4 years. These are the first new homes in Boulder City in years. There is land available around the Boulder Creek Golf Course that already has voter approval to sell. The city is working on a strategy to market this property sometime in the future. With respect to availability, I checked with a local realtor. who said there are 105 properties for sale in Boulder City right now. That includes single-family homes, condos, townhouses, and manufactured homes. Only 16 are $300,000 or below. Renting is another issue, which we don't have time to discuss tonight. But I don't know if you all know, but it's very difficult to find a place to rent in Boulder City. With respect to commercial, there are some vacancies. The biggest demand is warehouses with apartments, which are considered industrial. Oh my goodness. Do you support our current controlled growth ordinance? I do support our current growth ordinance and would not change it. The voters have been very clear about this. Our growth ordinance has kept Boulder City small, and that's what we all love about Boulder City. However, I would say controlled growth does not mean no growth. For your information, Boulder City annual growth rate from 2010 to 2017 is 0.6%. In other words, we're not growing at all. We're declining in population. No multifamily permits have been issued since 2006. Boulder City school enrollment has declined as well over this time period. The Hoover Dam Gateway project has only been tabled. I won't read the rest of that question. The Hoover Dam Gateway project was presented to the council as an informational document or feasibility study. For those who have not read it, it provides a lot of information. It was a very thorough report. However, the city council has never taken any action on this. With respect to the future impact our community, as far as I know, it will have none. It has been removed from the land management plan. Nothing is being considered for that area. I can't put it any more simply or clearly than that. The city's financial status. The city is in the best financial shape it has been in since I've been on council. We have a fund balance of about $20 million, and we're building up our reserves. For the first time, we had an audit from an independent auditor with no findings. Over the last 8 years, this city has reduced our debt by $60 million. This was done in a recessionary time without refinancing debt, which could have saved millions more. The strategic plan the City Council approved includes strategies to keep improving our finances. It identifies ways to diversify our revenue stream through greater use of grants, elevate lease potential of city-owned land for further solar development, communication sites, and industrial development within the urban core. And I think I made it. Thank you very much.
Opportunity to conduct more research and dig into more documents than I have since I was a graduate student. Definitions and information on CLGs, budget data, financial information, history and definitions, and lots of referring back and forth to Sterling codifiers. I know that this is just the beginning, and I really do look forward to more of this kind of research. Do I think our historic downtown is healthy and successful? And if not, what would I do to change that? I don't think it's completely healthy and successful. I would say not entirely. I would define a healthy and successful downtown as one with sustained occupancy, successful business owners, satisfied customers, and a supportive community. I would define health and success as it applies to a historic downtown area as one with well-maintained buildings, with owners, either individuals, organizations, or foundations, who are required to maintain the integrity of the historic community. Full occupancy of commercial buildings, a variety of shopping options, and business owners and homeowners with a sense of pride and ownership. While we have businesses that have been anchors of the retail community in our town, who are able to continue to provide goods and services and food to our community, there exists issues that keep the downtown area less than healthy. The existence of boarded up real estate with the threat of demolition does not support that concept. The existence businesses that have been left to blight do not support the idea of a healthy downtown area. Our success as a historic downtown area appears to be threatened by the fact that business owners can be allowed to consider demolition of our historic assets as an option. That some businesses must wait long periods of time for permits to conduct business. And there seems to be no requirement for owners to maintain their property which is vacant. What would I do? I would make sure that zoning ordinances not only exist to discourage such actions, but encourage property owners to maintain their historic properties that they oversee, such as tax credits. For example, the Federal Historic Preservation Tax Incentives Program encourages private sector rehabilitation of historic buildings and is quite successful and cost-effective. It is a program administered by the National Park Service, the IRS, and the State Historic Preservation Office. I would make sure that businesses are able to make progress with their ventures in a timely fashion as long as they follow the necessary codes. Our healthy and successful historic downtown area is a possibility that exists with strong leadership and a clear vision. The vision will attract businesses and visitors to our historic community, supporting a healthy and successful historic downtown area. Number 2, how would I strengthen the city's historic preservation program to ensure continued protection of city landmarks, historic sites, and a historic district? In order to strengthen the city's historic preservation program to ensure continued protection of our historic assets, requires legal designations, enforceable codes and ordinances, the development of nonprofit foundations with options for funding and grants, and a community commitment to the importance to this venture. It starts with what we are. We are Nevada's largest listing in the National Register of Historic Places. We have 408 buildings that qualify us for that. It requires becoming a certified legal government, like Peggy said. It also takes education and community support. Unfortunately, it's easy to get involved with words and concerns, but the actions have to be behind it. Already, grants and funding must be researched and available. This is one of my strengths. I have obtained grants for academic study and grants that supported our own emergency aid of Boulder City. This process is not something that can wait until the last minute with the threat of destruction in front of us. It should be put into place right away. An example would be the listings that come from the Preservation Directory, which I discovered, that contains information from nonprofits such as the Boulder City History and Arts Foundation on the availability and application for grants and tax incentives. This includes federal tax credits, National Trust preservation funds, and preservation easement tax incentives for homeowners. Number 3, what's more important for our city right now, building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing, expanding, or better utilizing our existing homes or storefronts. I absolutely think our priority should be rehabbing, expanding, and or better utilizing our existing homes and storefronts. I believe that we have the necessary commercial space in this town to support its population with a necessary assortment of real retail stores and businesses. We have some empty storefronts and buildings and hotels for sale that support the need for available commercial space. We currently have over 100 homes available for sale in Boulder City, selling between $160,000 and $4.5 million. We are currently conducting an inventory of our city properties, too. While there may not be living space affordable to everyone who would like to live here, there are still places available for purchase. We also have a growth ordinance that does allow for some new home development, and over time these could be built on infill property and with available allotments. Which leads me to the next question. 4, do I support our current growth ordinance? And if not, what would I do to change it? Yes, I support the current controlled growth management plan, which I've studied on sterling codifiers, which I have reread lots of times. I do not see any need to change it and would oppose attempts to change it which would allow for increased development. While I understand the desire for developers to make a profit through economies of scale, they are aware of these restrictions when they purchase the properties and seek to develop them. We have come in significantly under the cap for the last 18 years at approximately over 18 years, 0.77% per year. We should stay under the cap of 3%, or 120 allotted lots, 30 per development per year, with future reservations of 60 over the next 2 years after the first construction year. This allows for some sustained growth while curbing the likelihood of sprawl. The one thing that I would like to do is decrease the likelihood of leapfrog development by discouraging it somehow other than just giving rating points for not creating leapfrog developments. This should be a deal breaker. 5, the Boulder Dam Gateway project has only been tabled. Do you agree with the current proposal as it stands? Why or why not? What do you think will be the future impact on our community should it go through? Like Peggy said, it's been more than tabled. It has been removed from the land management plan for this moment and is off the table. I think that this would have an extremely negative impact on the community. First, it takes more traffic off the business exit to Boulder City. Then it asks the question if we want to be a location for a big box house, or a shipping container transfer station, or a call center. I believe that despite the assurances of those with vested interests, that this would be a case of leapfrog development, leading to commercial visitor amenities and eventually housing that would blend us right into Henderson. I say keep it off the plan. And number 6, how do I feel about the city's current financial how do I feel the current city financial status is? Would you plan to improve it? What options are there for increasing revenue streams for our financial success? And I'm going to not bore you, or at least try not to bore you with things I've discovered. First of all, this is something that I feel really comfortable about discussing with a degree in finance and experience as a treasurer for several organizations. I've studied to some degree both the budgets of 17-18 and 18-19. I've also studied the 5-year budget approved by the last city council meeting. I understand that the city's financial status is a function of evaluating 2 major types of budgets and statements. By the way, I was a teacher. The utility fund and the general funds, which are required to be kept separate by the NRS, along with an airport, capital improvement project fund, cemetery, and redevelopment funds. Those all have to be kept separate. At first glance, it looks like we're in good shape according to the results that we have balanced our budget, and moving forward, our revenues are greater than our expenditures. That's good. Yet it looks like the surplus gets smaller over time. Sticking with the strategies of the strategic plan goals, we should remain in good shape going forward. Salaries. I heard somebody make a comment to me the other day about, our salaries. Well, our salaries are, say, consistent with Mesquite. They spend $1,359 per capita in salaries, and we spend $1,111 per capita in annual salaries. However, we do get an annual infusion of over $1 million from the utility fund to the general fund, which I will get to. And that's okay. We're allowed to do that according to the NRS. The status of the utility fund is concerning as a result of decisions that were made regarding a raw water line. We pay a lot of interest for previous incurred debt, which stays in the utility fund. The utility fund has a rate stabilization reserve account and a long-term capital reserve account, which can be funded from rate increases, which have already been administered and are coming up again. The debt payoff is the only long-term debt of this city. The NRS Chapter 354 does allow transfers of funds, enterprise funds, with limitations, and Boulder City can allocate $1.4 million annually. However, the City Council set a goal to transfer that to less than $1 million by 2021. There was a ballot measure to use the capital improvement projects money to draw down the long-term raw water debt. It failed. It seems that by eliminating or significantly reducing the amount transferred to the general fund from the utility fund, that raising rates would not be required to meet the budget. The increase in the general fund would come from prospective leases for energy. A balanced budget and conservative spending is necessary. Fiscal stewardship requires a councilwoman with knowledge and the willingness to review financial documents. While our property taxes remain relatively low, it's important not to incur more bond debt that raises these taxes significantly. For the evaluation of necessary debt acquisition, frugal decisions need to be made to cost and benefit. Finally, I feel that the revenue streams would be increased by fully healthy and successful historic downtown area through increased business revenues. However, I think there's an issue of maintaining oversight of spending, especially with reliance on solar leases, which are probably but not necessarily future revenue streams. What we have to be careful of is seeing our open space property and our legacy as a historic community as a saleable asset rather than the precious and valuable asset it is right now. Thank you.
It's always difficult to follow up a professor, but I'll give it a shot. I'd like to thank Boulder City Community Alliance and, of course, American Legion Hall for hosting this forum, and, of course, thank you all for coming here tonight. My name is James Howard Adams. I'm 33 years old, and I've been living here in Boulder City for 24 years now. Professionally, I work as a musician, graphic designer, and a promoter. I'm going to go ahead and dive right into these questions. I might abbreviate them a little bit for time's sake. We've heard them all a bunch, but I'll try and hit every single point. First question, do I think the historic downtown area is healthy? Absolutely. I think if any of you have been on the Wine Walk Rail recently, you know that it takes quite a feat of constitution to make it to every single stop on that list. We have a healthy mix of new businesses and businesses that have been there for years and years. Each one of them have been contributing to what makes Boulder City so special and so unique. It is unfortunate that there are two prominent sites in our historic district and the downtown district that are boarded up. But what is even more unfortunate is that the city has allowed it to continue for this long, which moves us right into the next question. How should we strengthen Boulder City's historic preservation code? We don't need to look very far. The city of Las Vegas has stronger protections for its historic districts than the historic Boulder City. I don't think that's appropriate. We don't have to reinvent the wheel to protect our heritage here. The National Park Service has a set of guidelines and standards that are followed by communities large and small throughout the entire nation, and all of those are used to protect the history. In fact, Boulder City used to be one of those cities that had a historic preservation that could have helped prevent the demolition of places like the old Six Companies Hospital. Now, we can blame previous councils for dismantling that language that led to that demolition, but it has been years since that demolition, and only just now have we started to take action to right this wrong. Again, I don't think that that is very acceptable. Our city's history is not just our own, but it's the history of the nation. You know, the Hoover Dam redefined the American Southwest, and we need laws that represent and show the respect that is deserved to our cultural importance and the story of our city. What's more important for our city right now, building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing, expanding, or better utilizing our existing homes and storefronts? We absolutely should be prioritizing infill. We should be prioritizing strengthening the core long before we start to think about outward expansion. That's not just my belief. It is expressed in Boulder City's master plan. I believe it kind of comes right here into this next question, right, about growth control ordinance, but it's at the very heart of our identity, our small footprint. Do I support our current growth control ordinance? With all my heart. It was the change, it was the ballot question at the last cycle to change our growth control ordinance that got me so involved. It was certainly a catalyst in that. We get to boast that we are the largest city land-wise in the state of Nevada. I recently found out, according to Wikipedia at least, we're the 35th largest city in the nation because of land. And that's impressive. We're 16,000, and what have we been able to do with that land? We've been able to be good stewards to our environment. We've been able to have habitations for our desert tortoises. We've been able to promote recreation use, and we've even been able to encourage the development of renewable resource energies, something that is in great demand and which demand is only going to increase in the near future. I see no reason to change it at all. It's for 40 years it's worked for us. There's nothing that should be done about it. The Boulder Dam Gateway project has only been tabled. Do I agree with the current proposal as it stands? Let's get right to it. Like they've said, it was tabled. There was no action taken on it. The parcels of land where they were discussing have been removed from the land management plan. That's great. That's good news for all of us. However, as long as we have land available, as long as we have land that can be developed in the El Dorado Valley, developers will be pressuring this city to develop it. That is what they do. And there are always going to be those select few who will do whatever it takes to get that done. That's why I think it's important that we should allow the citizens to decide what gets developed and what doesn't. It's not only that we should be able to vote on an acre, a sale of an acre or more of land, we should get to vote on the leasing of an acre or more of land for any of these developments that are non-renewable resources. I just think that would really work towards rebuilding the confidence that many feel has been lost here in Boulder City. Very last question here. How do I feel the current city's financial status is? As everybody said, we're doing pretty good. Once again, we're a town of 16,000. I think any other city our size across the nation would be jealous of the position we're in. With all that land, like I said before, we have the solar revenues. It generates almost a third of our budget. That's a great place to be. Where I think we're actually lacking, and all of these things, we're strong financially, we're strong. We've got so many great things going on. So what is it that we need to change? What's going wrong here? I think the greatest asset that the city has been ignoring for a long time is the most valuable one. It's the people. I think I'm not alone here that many of us feel that we've been ignored, that we're not properly being represented, and it's got to change. I think the city needs to do even more to get people out, to get people active. We should be promoting the agendas on social media. We should be promoting every single meeting. We should be filling all of the committee meetings that are happening. Right now, you go there to look up the Planning Commission or Historic Preservation meeting, you can find an audio recording. Oftentimes they're not even that great. We have the technology right now. We've seen the videos of City Council. It's not just hitting spacebar, but it's set up, and that is something that can only increase access to our residents. That's something that we need to be working more and more on. Giving access to people so that we can, so that they can make informed decisions. It is not ironic, or the irony is not lost on me that while we receive so much money from solar fields, that our utility rates have been going up. We'll see 20% before it's all done. There's a big disconnect there. And I think people need to be informed. If the city truly believes that that is the best thing for the city, it's up to the city to let us know and inform us why that is. They can't just tell us, don't worry, this is in your best interest. You just got to understand that's not acceptable. So anyways, in closing, I'm running for city council not because I believe that I do have all the right answers. I'm running because I believe all of those answers can be found within the community. That is what is most important. The city does need a new voice on council, and it needs your voice. And I think together we can do that. So if you'll have me, I would really appreciate your vote for city council. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tom Tyler. I've lived in Boulder City since 1991. My kids grew up here, got scholarships out here, and my grandkids are here now. So I have a very vested interest in this town the way I wanted my kids to grow up in. So I want my grandkids to have the same advantage my children have. Question number one. I don't think our downtown is that healthy, but I have a plan. The theater is the jewel of the historic district. Entering the theater is like going back in time. It's an Art Deco interior, it's like total 30s. It already hosts the Dam Film Festival as well as a dance recital that it takes hours to get a ticket for. I've never waited in line so long. A lot of moms and grandpas want to go to that recital, I'll tell you. I think that the Dam Hotel or the Dam Theater would be perfect for drawing people into the downtown area. We could have a lot of different events. We could do comedy nights, class it up with string quartets, piano recitals, rock and roll concerts, a local talent. Any of those things would draw people to our downtown to use our restaurants and stuff like that. And I think our restaurateurs would get together and work at using that building. I think it would definitely pay for itself. I'm challenging Alan Goya. I challenge the Historic Society to find the grants to make it happen. The grants are out there. I'm the president of Emergency Aid, and we spent $200,000 on the town, and 120 of that came through grants, approximately. But so grants are out there and available for us if we go and get them. How would I strengthen the historic preservation program? The city should bend over backwards in dealing with private owners of historic buildings and show them that it's to their advantage to stay historic. The city was less than that to Charles Larson, and you see what that got us. He's got 2 closed-up buildings, and he contributed a lot to our town through charities and stuff like that. And I really think that he should be thanked and maybe reapproached about dealing with us a little better. The third question, if new homes are built, they should be at one at a time. We should concentrate on rehabbing, expanding, and better utilizing our existing homes and storefronts. This activity raises all our property values, but when a new subdivision goes in, it just reduces them. It increases the strain on our infrastructure and our allotments of water and power. So by all means, let's fix what we have. Let's not have new subdivisions and stuff. Not for a while anyway. Do you support our current growth ordinance? If not, what would you do to change it? I support the growth ordinance, but it must go hand in hand with leapfrog growth. If anything, I might restrict it a little bit more. Because I think we're healthy being zero growth. Everybody says it's unhealthy, but how many houses are out there? How many of your friends had to move to Henderson because they can't afford to live here? There's a lot of things that we can do to make our city livable for us. The fifth question was the Boulder Dam Gateway project. One of the reasons I'm running for council was because of the Gateway project. We spent $180,000 on a study that was against our growth ordinance and leapfrog growth. Election after election, the citizens state they want the growth ordinance and no leapfrog growth. And yet, here we were. If it had passed, I think it would have sucked our commercial area in town, would have just disappeared. How do you feel current city fiscal status is, and what would you do to improve it? You know, our airport has better potential for revenue than the solar fields. At present, we get peanuts, and this needs to change. In fact, I'm afraid the airport's going to get too big. Our airport is already lengthening its runway. If you extend the road from the airport to the I-11, we'd be the perfect freight and private jet airport. That kind of concerns me a little bit because that could really get out of hand. The airports in Vegas are all traffic bound. This is ideal. They're right on the freeway to all the transcontinental and everything else, you know. Our airport could be expanded to incredible size. But, you know, we should be getting income from that. And right now, and I don't think we are. So, you know, according to the mayor, our financial status is healthy. And that's good. But my main concern is 30% of the general fund is coming from the solar fields. That solar money should be rebuilding our infrastructure, not paying the wages of our new employees. That way we can address my main concern, utilities. You know, resolutions 6489, 6490, and 6491 states on July 1st, 2019, on each subsequent year, from now on, there is a 2.5% increase of rates for water, electricity, and sewer. So the 5-year plan that was approved by our incumbents is a 20% increase in their utilities without even knowing it's needed. The allotment of water and electricity should be subsidizing the citizens, not a source of income for the city. You know, the outside world covets what Boulder City has. If you elect me as a council member, I will protect our assets for our citizens' use. Thank you.
I'm Judy D. Shane, and I'll start with question one, like everyone else. Do you think our historic downtown area is healthy and successful? If not, what would you do to change that? I think the downtown historic area is nowhere near as healthy and successful looking as it was a few years ago. The city needs to put some teeth into the blight laws and have penalties for property owners who do not maintain the exterior of their closed-up buildings and the land around it. The city should require all boarded-up buildings to use plexiglass coverings over windows and doors so police can go by and make sure no one is living in those buildings illegally. Property owners should be required to maintain around the unused buildings by cutting weeds and cleaning up trash. If owners do not do this, the city should be able to hire others to do the work and bill the property owner. If the property owner doesn't pay that bill to the city within 30 to 60 days, the city should be putting liens and interest and fines and interest and a lien against that building. So he can't sell that building till we get our money. This isn't a charity. I mean, let's make everybody responsible. If you have a home and you aren't doing something right because you aren't a very big person, the city will come down on you in a heartbeat. So the same should be with property owners, especially ones in the historic district that affect our entire area. 2, how would you strengthen the city historic preservation program to ensure continued protection of landmarks, historic sites, and historic district? Well, I find it an interesting question because the city can't continue a program they don't have. As they have, I have never heard about or seen a list of historic landmarks or sites, and the city does not appear to have any historic preservation program to protect historical places. demolition permits should never be granted by the city for city-owned or controlled properties without agreement of the citizens. I would like to see landmarks and sites be designated as parks or some other kind of a classification that means the city would never be allowed to sell or convert them to a private use. They would always remain open to the public, the citizens of Boulder City. Private property owners are asked to conform to historical accuracy on the outside parts of their homes that can be seen from the street, but no requirement or incentive is offered to them to do that. So if it's somebody who doesn't have a lot of money, but yet they need to make changes to their home, it's rather difficult. So we do need to have some vehicle to help those homeowners. Okay, number 3. What's more important to our city right now? Building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing, expanding, or better utilizing our existing homes and storefronts? I'm all for rehabbing and expanding what we currently have. You know, reusing it, utilizing it in some way. I'm a big do-it-yourselfer. We should be rehabbing and using existing properties that are viable for rehabbing. We do have to remember that not every building that's old is one that can be salvaged and, you know, responsibly or economically, because that does play into what we can and cannot save. There are buildings in commercial, I'm sorry. There are privately owned lots that are used for new homes in already established neighborhoods and buildings in commercial zones. Reusing or building on existing private lots in established areas saves money for the city and the owners because the infrastructure is already to that lot, and then people just have to connect to it. So you save money all the way around. The other thing is, it should also result in the city savings on personnel, buildings, and equipment for emergency services, as all the residents and businesses are more centrally located instead of spread out all over the 208 square miles of land we own. Do you support our current growth ordinance? If not, what would you do to change it? I strongly believe in that growth ordinance. It works well and does what it was designed to do for Boulder City years ago when they put it in. They did a marvelous job, our past citizens that were part of that and putting that together. I think they were very well thought out and did a great job on it. Slow growth allows the city to grow from the inside out to the edges and allows the necessary services citizens want and need to expand in a measured way and thoughtful process. We could put in streets and utilities now, but the cost would be prohibited and not be covered for years. Uncontrolled growth does not pay for itself. Number 5, the Boulder Dam Gateway. The project has been tabled. Do you agree with the current proposal as it stands? Why or why not? What do you think would be the impact on our community if it went through? I was at that council meeting that evening, and as I recall, the agenda item was for presentation of the report only, not an action item as to what the proposal was. The only action called for from the city council at that time was to accept or reject the report. Seeing as how we'd already paid for the report, it would be dumb to reject it, right? So the item was, the project was never discussed and there was no other action associated with that item. There were many of us strongly opposed to moving forward on that or similar projects. At the council meeting February 12th, the area itself was proposed to be built per the Garcia report, was removed from the land management plan. Anyone can request it be put back on the management plan in the future. But like the dry lake bed, the community would have time to argue for or against the planning commission and the city council. I can see it coming up again, hopefully not for another 50 or 100 years, when our city has grown out to it. The report was okay, but was way too grandiose for our small town at this time. Beyond the expense of infrastructure to the area of leased land, it would have moved the center of attention to the El Dorado Valley. Once development at the I-11 and 95 is started, there will be a rush for private landowners down there and all other outside party pushes from developers to expand in the area. The Boulder city we know and love would be gone. And we'd become the next Henderson in Las Vegas. No visitors to our great restaurants. No visitors to our shops. Our historic areas and great parks are empty, and our fabulous recreation areas are gone, will be empty. Boulder City will be gone, will cease to exist. How do you feel? Number 6, how do you feel the current city's financial status is, and how would I plan to improve it? What options are there for increasing revenue streams for financial success? I think we are currently on a sound financial footing, but I don't think it would take much to knock us off our feet either. We need to continue to be prudent in spending and try to build up some savings to be able to weather another possible economic downturn, and they do come on a regular basis. I would like to see new businesses and current businesses be encouraged. It would be good to have prospective new businesses look at Boulder City as the best place to be, with great freeway access and a ready supply of employees. And no, that does not mean we have to do away with our growth ordinance. It doesn't take any more effort for Henderson and Las Vegas residents to drive to Boulder City for work than it takes Boulder City residents to drive to Henderson or Las Vegas. A number of our city employees already do drive to Boulder City for work every day. So a wider diversification of business would help encourage people to spend money here, not over the hill. We need to get input from citizens as to what they think would be the best kinds and sizes of businesses we should be looking for. Many of our citizens have actually have close contacts in the business community and could maybe steer us to the businesses we should be talking to about coming here. We can't rely just on solar and selling land. We need some other options, and I think labeling ourselves as a great place for small manufacturers, warehouses, and retail business should be looked into. These are the basic highlights of my thoughts on this. None of this is, and none of us can give you a concise answer on everything. But what we tried to do was give you our best estimate of ideas that we think that could work for our city. So thank you all for your time, and thank the BCCA. The American Legion, I see they have a sign back there on the door. They're having a pancake breakfast Saturday morning from 7 to 11. So I just thought I'd bring it to your attention. Thank you.
Last but not least, the advantage to going last, I got to see everybody's notes and hear everybody's comments. By the way, these candidates did a great job. I remember a couple of years ago having an election before mine where there wasn't any candidates, uncontested. So to see a big field of candidates here is refreshing, and it's a good message to have. Good job. So my name's Rich Schumann, running for re-election. And I'm very proud to be here tonight. Appreciate the invitation by the BC Alliance. Maybe the first time I've been invited to a BC Alliance meeting, so thank you. To give you a little background, I didn't bring a lot of notes, but I wanted to kind of talk from memory here and just kind of shoot from the hip with you and give you my gut comments to these questions. I did take some time and review them, and like to go through those with you. So, do you think our historic downtown area is healthy and successful? If not, what would you do to change it? And I do think it's healthy and successful. I spend a lot of time in the downtown. I have a small business there. I have a storefront in the downtown, so I get to see every day people walking and coming and interacting with the downtown. So on the weekends, on the evenings, it's very healthy. I love our downtown. It's actually, a wonderful, healthy, vibrant downtown. Love it when we have activities going on, art in the park, and events like that just bring so much life to our downtown. So I can't think of it as anything other than healthy and vibrant. And I really don't just look at the downtown. I look at our whole business corridor, our whole business district as healthy. Now we have some spots, and we have some vacancies, and we've had some effects, and certainly we need to fill those vacancies with reputable businesses, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. How would you strengthen the city's historic preservation program to ensure continued protection of the city landmarks and historic sites? Well, first of all, we do need to tighten put some more teeth into our historic preservation codes. I've spent a lot of time growing up in New England, and back there you can't demolish a historic building. I don't think it's even possible. Those buildings stay there forever. So I believe we should be doing the same thing. So when we have a historic building, we should do everything we can in our code and in our regulations to prohibit the ability to demolish a historic building. Very, very important to us. Furthermore, in our strategic planning process, I kind of coined a phrase called historic promotion. And I like that as much as historic preservation. I think we do need to be talking about our historic buildings more and promoting them more. And part of historic preservation is education, letting people know what we have and why we have it. So part of promoting our historic buildings is also repurposing them. I believe that's important. I've been talking to other council members about this. The water filtration plant's a good example.